The energy shield cracked with the sound of a thunderclap, sending a shockwave of ionized air rippling through the grand arena. Elias Thorne didn't flinch. He stood on the raised dais, his knuckles white as he gripped the railing, his eyes locked on the chaotic blur of combat below. Kaylin, the matriarch of the Kraul, was losing. Her opponent, Warlord Vrox, was a towering mass of bioarmor and rage, a true apex predator swinging a kinetic hammer that could flatten the tank. Duck left, Elias projected a thought, praying their bond would carry the warning over the roar of 10,000 spectators. Down in the sand, Kaylin moved before the thought fully formed. She slipped under Rox's swing, the wind of the weapon whipping her ceremonial braids. She was bruised, bleeding violet itcher, but her golden eyes snapped up to meet Elias's gaze. There was no fear there, only a burning, terrifying trust. This was the raw Terran spirit Elias had introduced to the galaxy, the refusal to yield when physics said you should be dead. Pattern Delta, Elias signaled, his heart hammering against his ribs. Bait the overreach. Vrox roared, raising the hammer for a killing blow. Kaylin stopped moving. She stood her ground, looking small against the warlord's bulk. The crowd gasped, but Elias smiled. Tactics beat tonnage. 6 months ago, Elias hadn't been a strategist for alien royalty. He had been a burning streak in the sky, a disgraced pilot screaming through the atmosphere of 4X Prime. The crash should have vaporized him. Instead, it was the start of a science fiction story that no one back on Earth would believe. He had crawled from the wreckage of his fighter, coughing up smoke, expecting to die within the hour. 4X Prime was a Class 5 Death Worlder environment, a planetary pressure cooker where the flora tried to digest you and the fauna hunted for sport. He survived for 3 days on pure adrenaline and human ingenuity, rigging proximity mines from his ship's fuel cells. Then the jungle went quiet. The ambient chittering of insects ceased. The trees seemed to part, and she stepped through. Kaylin. She was 8 feet of predatory grace, her chitin armor gleaming like polished obsidian under the twin suns. She looked at the shivering, soft-skinned human, then at the complex trap he had rigged, a device capable of blowing her legs off. He braced for the end. He waited for the claws, but the monster didn't eat him. It bowed. The Kraul respected strength, but they revered intelligence. Kaylin didn't see a meal. She saw a weapon. She knelt, extending a claw not to strike, but to offer a strange, vibrating hum of introduction. Later, in the obsidian halls of her citadel, the arrangement was made clear. The Galactic Council recognized unions, and Warlord Vrox was maneuvering to force a marriage that would hand him the Onyx throne. Kaylin needed a consort who was technically sentient, but politically insignificant to block the claim. Politics is just war without the plasma rounds, Kaylin had rumbled, her voice vibrating in Elias's chest as she paced around him. She needed a shield. She didn't expect that the small creature from Earth would turn out to be a sword. Earth gave him orders. The aliens gave him a home. And as Elias looked at the maps of the Kraul territories, pointing out choke points and explaining the concept of asymmetric warfare, he saw something change in Kaylin's alien eyes. It wasn't just calculation anymore. It was the heat of discovery, the intoxicating realization that she had found the one creature in the galaxy who could match her will, if not her strength. The hammer struck the arena floor where Kaylin had stood a microsecond before, the impact sending a geyser of pulverized stone into the air. Vrox, carried by the momentum of his own lethal intent, stumbled forward. Now, Elias projected, the command sharp as a laser cut. Kaylin didn't just dodge, she flowed. Using the massive limb of the warlord as a fulcrum, she vaulted over his head, twisting in midair with a grace that defied her armored bulk. She landed behind him, not with a crash, but with a precise, devastating silence. Before Vrox could turn, she drove a paralytic spike into the exposed neural cluster at the base of his neck. The warlord froze, his roar dying in his throat, crashing to the sand like a felled monument. Silence swept the arena, followed instantly by a deafening, rhythmic stomping. Kaylin stood over the fallen giant, her chest heaving, violet blood slick on her arm. She didn't play to the crowd. Her eyes found Elias on the dais immediately. The connection between them flared hot, a rush of adrenaline and fierce, possessive relief that nearly brought Elias to his knees. It was cross-species sociology in its rawest form, the matriarch acknowledging her equal, but the victory was short-lived. The sky above the arena tore open. A sleek, silver vessel descended, bearing the sigil of the Galactic Council. The ramp hissed down, and Imperatrix Zai descended, flanked by drone guards. She looked at the primitive combat with a sneer, regarding the crawl as little more than Space Orcs playing in the dirt. "Entertaining," Zai drawled, her voice amplified across the stadium. "But the Council does not recognize leadership decided by brawling. Vorex Prime is to be annexed. Your borders are dissolved." Kalen growled, a low subsonic rumble that vibrated through the floorboards, but Elias placed a hand on her arm. This was a different kind of battlefield. "Actually," Elias said, his voice cutting through the tension. He stepped forward, tapping a holographic projector on his wrist. "You're going to recognize her sovereignty, and you're going to provide us with a seat at the table." Zai laughed. "And why would I listen to a stray human?" "Because of this." Elias flicked his wrist, projecting a complex rotating schematic into the air between them. It was a slipstream engine, Earth tech, modified with Kalen's biocrystalline resources. "This is the design for a stable transgalactic drive. It's faster than your current FTL by a factor of 3. Humanity calls it leverage. I call it the price of admission." Zai's smile vanished. She recognized the implications immediately. With that engine, the Council's trade routes were obsolete. "If you annex us," Elias continued, his tone cool, "I delete the data. If you recognize Kalen as High Queen and grant us independence, the schematics are yours." It was the ultimate gamble, using information asymmetry to hold an empire at bay. Zai looked from the schematic to the hulking, protective form of Kalen, and finally to the defiant human. "Agreed," Zai whispered, greed outweighing pride. 5 years later, the jungle of Vorex Prime was alive with the hum of industry. The colony was a testament to hybrid resilience, chrome structures interwoven with massive bioluminescent trees. Elias stood on the balcony of the citadel watching the sun set. A small hand tugged at his pant leg. He looked down at his son-a-boy with human features but skin that shimmered with a faint, chitinous sheen, and eyes that held the golden vertical slit of the crowl. "They're coming, aren't they?" Kalen asked, stepping up behind him. Her hand rested on his shoulder, heavy and grounding. Elias looked up at the sky. The sensors had picked up the signature hours ago. The Earth Armada was approaching, coming to reclaim their lost pilot and the technology he had stolen. "Let them come," Elias said, leaning back into her touch, feeling the unbreakable strength of the bond they had forged in fire. "They think they're invading a savage world. They have no idea what happens when human ingenuity marries an apex predator." He activated the planetary defense grid, the sky above them lighting up with the promise of a fight.